Next, we have a presentation from Vanadium Resources with the ticker code VR8. To tell us more about the company's South Africa and Australian vanadium projects, today we are joined by Managing Director Eugene Nell. Good morning, Eugene.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Let me just quickly get my presentation up. Well, today I want to tell you a little bit about our Steel Pour Drift project, which is our flagship project, which is one of the world's largest and highest grade vanadium projects for a new green era coming up. If we look at vanadium, the major demand for vanadium historically has always been in steel making. It makes up about 90% of the world market. Vanadium is used to strengthen steel, it gives it tensile properties, and it's especially used in rebar. The other 10% of the market is then made up of chemical uses, the aeronautical industry, and then the big growth market that we see forward would be in the use for vanadium redox flow batteries. And it ties up actually quite nice with the presentation that Iggy just did. If you look at the renewable age, if I can use the old fuel or oil type analogy, the solar plants and your wind farms, they're basically your refineries. They produce the energy. Where lithium and the silicon batteries comes in, that's what sits in your vehicle that you charge every few days. But in between, you need the bulk energy storage because the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't shine. And that's where vanadium redox flow batteries fit in. They're essentially your gas station between your solar farm and the end user. The benefits of vanadium redox flow batteries are that they've got an unlimited cycle time, so you can charge and discharge them as many times as you want, unlike conventional batteries, which is very important for that bulk energy storage systems, because you might charge and discharge a couple of times a day compared to a vehicle that you'll only charge a few times a week. So there's a big market that's starting to develop around the vanadium redox flow batteries. According to Bloomberg, if you look at the battery boom, the growing energy storage investments are going to grow exponentially over the next 5 to 20 years. And this is both in the bulk energy storage and the smaller energy storage units. The current projections are that there's probably going to be around a 30,000 ton per annum shortfall in the supply of vanadium. And there's multiple factors that actually contribute to that. This is not only due to the growth in the vanadium redox flow battery market, it's also post-COVID, a lot of the governments have instituted big infrastructure builds. The United States wanting to spend $1.2 trillion. Now, to build infrastructure, you need steel, and you need rebar, you need reinforced steel. In addition, China has placed a cap on their own vanadium production because of the emissions that they're trying to curb on their smelters. China is mainly a secondary producer of vanadium. So there is a big shortfall looming in the vanadium market in the next 2 to 3 years, with no new projects on the horizon in the next year or two. We look at where our project is situated. Our project is situated on the eastern limb of the Bushveld complex. It's one of the premier mineralized deposits in the world. The Bushveld complex contains about 75% of the world's platinum group metals, chrome metals, and vanadium in primary sources. Around our operation or our project, there's within a 20-kilometer radius, there's about 10 to 12 other major operations from companies like Glencore, African Rainbow Minerals, Anglo American. So it's a well-serviced, well-established mining environment. All the infrastructure is in place. We literally 2 hours drive from Johannesburg, where more than 90% of the processing plant will be constructed and manufactured. So in that sense, it's easy to operate, and it has an impact on reducing our OPEX and CAPEX costs. Now, if you look at any mining project, there's 4 pillars on which it's built. First off, you need to have a big enough resource to be able to operate for long enough to give you life of mine and to give you flexibility. Secondly, you need to have that resource in a shape or form that it's easy to mine. Now, if you look at our deposit, if you can imagine a 10 to 30 meter wide block of magnetite from surface slowly dipping to one side. It's extremely easy to mine, which reduces our OPEX and CAPEX. What I didn't mention on the size of the resource, we currently sitting on around 660 million tons of JORC compliant resource. So we've got the big resource, easy to mine. Third, you need to have the grade in the ground. The higher your grade is, the less you have to mine, the cheaper it becomes to make the same amount of product. We've got one of the highest grade deposits in the world, in the top 2 in the world, with a high grade component of about 180 million tons, grading at between 1.1 and 1.2% vanadium in situ. So with such a high grade feed source, we can significantly reduce our operating costs. And finally, my favorite topic, metallurgy. You need to have the metallurgy in the ore to make it easily extractable and easily upgradable. Now, our ore body upgrades extremely easy. We can achieve a 2.2% concentrate grade. And then our final product is a 98% vanadium flake, which is suitable both for the steel making industry and for the battery producers and the chemical industry. So it's got a wide range of markets that it can go into. If you look at our resources, I mentioned size-wise and grade, the middle column is our total resource, and the lower column is just our high-grade component. And as you can see there, we are by far the biggest deposit compared to any other new projects coming online. We've just completed the pre-feasibility study. The target of the pre-feasibility study was based on only 12% of the resource. It's no use we go and we flood the market with massive amounts of vanadium. So we only targeted 12% of the resource. That gives us a 25-year life of mine. So quite clearly, we can either expand laterally, increase capacity, or we can extend life of mine, depending on what the market requirements are during the project. If you look at the fundamentals around the pre-feasibility study, we'll be constructing a salt roast leach plant in conjunction with a mine and concentrator at a capex build of approximately $200 million US dollars. It takes about 18 months to build, after which we'll be producing 12,500 tons per annum of V2O5 flake at a grade of greater than 98% purity for the first 6 years of operation. Then, as part of the PFS, we've also included the expansion capex of around 150 million in year 6 of operations, which would then take our production capacity up to 18,500 tons per annum for the balance of the 19 years. On average, we're going to be producing just close to 40 million pounds per annum of vanadium flake at an all-in production cost of $3.08 per pound. If we look at the financial returns around the pre-feasibility study, it showed an EBITDA over life of mine of $5.8 billion, per annum around $231 million. The NPV at 8% after tax, 1.2 billion, with a attributable portion to vanadium resources of $884 million. The average free cash flow per annum is just short of $140 million over a 27-year life, with a payback of 25 months and an IRR of 45%. We look at the timeline that we're going ahead. The DFS portion, so it's the next stage, is going to kick off in the second half of this year. And in conjunction with that, we'll also start looking at offtake agreements. We'll make an investment decision towards the middle of next year and commence construction towards the end of next year, with concentrate and flake production then kicking in first half of 2024. So why are we world-class? Why is this a world-class deposit? It's got phenomenal financial metrics, got a very competitive OPEX and CAPEX, the lowest quartile in the world. We're only mining 12% of our resources in 25 years. We've got the option to extend past the 25 years, but you know that's real crystal ball gazing. So we kept it at 25 years purely for practical reasons. The extended resource that we've got available does facilitate debt funding for construction. And then we've also acquired ESG technology that could unlock the titanium and iron products that's concurrent in our deposit. We've got about 12 to 13% titanium in our deposit. And with us having such a big resource, we do have the feed for that envisioned ESG plant available without affecting our baseline process that's based on the salt roast. Thank you very much. If there's any questions.
Well, thanks for the presentation, Eugene. A webinar attendee has asked, so is there a difference in the grade of vanadium used in rebar versus the vanadium used in VRFBs?
VRFBs require a grade greater than 99.5%. So generally, if you produce a flake, there's some of the VRFB manufacturers will have an intermediate step as an upgrade. In rebar, there's two products that they use in the rebar. The one is they use the ferrovanadium as is, and then you add the 98% flake as a sweetener to increase your grade or to fine-tune the mix in the rebar.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us again today, Eugene. And of course, all presentations will be available online at brokerbriefing.com.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Ina.